Hi, my name is Gilbert, and I'm an adult services librarian at the Westmont Public Library. Today I'm going to talk to you about three movies from my childhood. The first movie I'm going to talk about is Tremors. Tremors is a horror comedy movie that came out in 1990, starring Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward. It is about the population of a very small town called Perfection that is menaced by underground monsters and has to work together in order to survive. It did poorly at the box office in its initial release, but did very well subsequently on home video and has become a cult classic. So, one of the original production titles for Tremors was Land Sharks, which actually does pretty accurately describe the monsters in the movie. This may also be one of the reasons why the movie fared poorly upon its initial release. The premise of the movie sounds like a very silly D grade horror film. However, the execution of the film is very strong and the movie is very charming, which is probably why the movie did well once people actually did see it. My memories of Tremors are all of the home video since I didn't see it in theaters. We owned the video cassette and watched it many times. I remember specifically being a bit frightened by the sequences involving the road construction crew. There's a sequence where one of the road construction crew members gets dragged off, and the other one gets buried under a rock slide. And his screams when he's getting buried are actually a little bit disturbing, even though this is not really that scary of a horror movie. Um, there's a later shot also, once the Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward characters happen upon that scene, when they see a hard hat with some gore in it. Not a lot, but it was pretty effective for what it is, and that was a little bit creepy to me as a child also. Something very specifically that my family and I, all of us enjoyed about the movie, is the characters work together, actively brainstorming solutions and bouncing ideas off one another to solve whatever the current problem they're facing is. It's funny, but if you step back and squint a little bit, Tremors is surprisingly similar to something like Apollo 13, where it's all about okay, we something goes wrong, we work the problem, we solve whatever the current predicament is, then something else goes wrong, we have to solve that too. And Apollo 13, of course, is another Kevin Bacon movie. But it's a little bit funny because it's just on the surface. You say Tremors and you say Apollo 13, you would probably assume they're not that similar. And actually, in some ways, they are very similar. My dad specifically, although the rest of us were very amused as well, really enjoyed the Burt Gummer character played by Michael Gross, who is a nutty survivalist who gets many of the best lines in the film and has reprised that role now, Michael Gross that is, for 7 movies and a TV show, which I'm sure nobody thought was going to happen back in 1990. The next movie I'm going to talk about is Real Genius. Real Genius is a comedy that came out in 1985 starring Val Kilmer, Gabe Jarrett, and William Atherton. It's about a group of prodigies working on a new experimental laser and the fallout from their development of it, along with a coming of age story set on a fictitious version of the Caltech campus. Real Genius is a really funny, charming movie with an outstanding 80s soundtrack. It features an escalating series of high tech pranks that all, except one, were apparently based on actual pranks students at Caltech pulled off. It also depicts a very high pressure academic environment in great detail, which is interesting and pretty rare in movies. Val Kilmer is really outstanding in this movie. He is breezy and comedic and just a great performance. And William Atherton, who you might also know as the EPA agent from Ghostbusters, is a great nemesis for all the hero characters, who also has a fair amount of nuance to his character as well. I don't actually remember when I first saw this one. It was just around, I assume that my parents rented it at some point and liked it enough to buy the tape. I remember my mother in particular commenting on the studying and classroom scenes. There's two in particular. First, there is a montage sequence of the main character going to class. Basically, the point of the whole montage is that he is trying to adjust to going to this incredibly difficult school, and he was admitted very early. He's only 15, and he's going to this high-end college. So he's starting to struggle with that. So there's a sequence of shots where he's going to a particular class, and at first he goes to the class, everyone's at the class. Then he goes to the class, and a whole bunch of students aren't there. They've just gone, set up tape recorders, and left because they don't actually have enough time to be at class with all the other studying they have to do. And finally, that main character goes to class, and he's the only one there. Everyone, including the teacher, has left behind tapes. The teacher has left one behind with a recording of his lecture on it that's just playing, and all the other students have left behind recorders to record it. The other scene is during a study session, is in a montage as well, where all of the principal characters, plus some other ones that we've seen throughout, are just studying for a big exam. I don't remember whether it was midterms or finals, and a communal study area in the dorm. Suddenly, one of the characters just freaks out. He jumps up, starts screaming while clutching his head, and runs off. Obviously, the high pressure environment and all the studying and everything has just gotten to him, and he has just snapped. The way the other characters react to this is they kind of watch him run off. One of them takes a seat, and they all continue studying because this is not something that's unusual at all in that environment. The last movie I'm going to talk about is You Only Live Twice, a James Bond film starring Sean Connery that came out in 1967. You Only Live Twice is the second to last mainline Sean Connery Bond film. The one after that was the one that starred George Lazenby, but then he only lasted one movie. Sean Connery came back for Diamonds Are Forever. For my money, though, You Only Live Twice is the most absurd Bond film starring Connery. So the movie opens with an American space shuttle in orbit around Earth. It is then swallowed by an unknown space shuttle. That's the front of it opens and just closes around the American space shuttle, and the space shuttle loses its contact with ground control. We then cut to Bond, who's apparently killed. Then we cut to his burial at sea funeral, where they dump his wrapped body into the ocean. Then divers come, retrieve his body, bring it to a submarine, unwrap him, show that he survived. He then gets his assignment on the submarine, and then they shoot him out of the torpedo tubes. Oh, and the movie ends with Bond leading a small army of ninjas with guns into a fake volcano. The movie was written by Roald Dahl, writer of well known children's books like James and the Giant Peach and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's on record as saying that after he wrote the screenplay, which he only had 6 weeks to write, the director, Lewis Gilbert, just took it and shot it and didn't change anything, which may be part of the reason the movie turned out so ridiculous. My family had a tradition of always watching Bond films whenever we were homesick from school. So, whenever my brother or I were homesick from school, we would most likely watch a Bond movie or two. The fact that probably most of the times in my life that I've seen this movie, I was sick, probably plays well with how much of a fever dream it is. Well, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please check out others like it on the Westmont Library YouTube channel. Thank you and have a nice day.